Hi, I'm Nikki Haverstock, a self-published author, and today we're talking about social media. Specifically, some things I want to hit are, do you need to do social media? Do you need to do all of the social media? What if is it helping you? Is it hurting you? And in my particular case, I'm going to talk about why I have quit a lot of social media and how I did it. Because a lot of people struggle with, once you realize that you're kind of have a problem with it, it's tough to back off. So first of all, do you need to have social media? I would say that you need to have some way for readers to find you. Now, that is definitely going to be a website. You need to have a website. I would recommend that you have some form of social media. Facebook seems to be where a lot of readers are, depending on your genre. Some people might say, whoa, I'm YA, they're all on Instagram. Okay, then they're all on Instagram. I will say that most writers tend to be on Facebook. There's large Facebook groups that have a lot of information in them. A lot of the classes that I've taken have Facebook groups that go along with them that provide additional resources. Just a class that I was looking at today had a Facebook group that you could do kind of continuing education. Twitter is also a place where a lot of writers are. So you probably need to have something, that some way that people can connect, because they don't do a newsletter, but they will follow your Facebook page or they will follow you on Twitter. I have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I have YouTube, is obvious. But for me, I will say that you don't need to have all of them. I have all of them, and I've used them at different times in different ways. And I'm going to kind of get into what I'm using now. I am on Facebook. That's where I've made a lot of connections. I know when I was first learning, that was a resource that I used a lot to learn. But I'm not in a place right now where a majority of my job as a writer is learning. When I started, and I started in started to look into self-publishing, I had a lot of information to learn. I had so much to learn about writing, formatting. I'm in groups for Scrivener, which is, and I'm groups for, I was trying to do dragon speech and stuff. So Facebook is a good place. I would say that Facebook is a good place to kind of network with other people. I do an anthology every year, and we network and we coordinate there and all that. But a common problem I see is newer writers feeling like, I have to be on every social media and it needs to be a huge part of my job as a writer. And that can be overwhelming, and I don't believe it's true. So what I mean by that is that if you are really passionate about Twitter and it meets other social needs, or Facebook or all that, then I would say do those. But you don't need to be on all of them. And I don't think wherever your readers are, you probably need to be there to a certain degree to connect with them, but you don't necessarily need to be on all of them. Now, I started to question the idea that I needed to be on any of them at all over the past couple years, and I needed to get a handle on how I was doing it. There's a lot of things. It wasn't one factor at all. One of them was my husband being like, you're always on your phone. You're always looking at your phone when, even when you're not working, you're on your phone. And me being like, yeah. That was more respectful than that because he's my partner and I care what he thinks. But then iPhone rolled out something under one of the new things that showed you how you were spending your time on your phone. And I looked and I was like, ooh, and it was literally in the 7 to 8 hours a day. Now, some of that was answering business questions. I'm a moderator for a group, things like that. But a lot of that was just scrolling, getting into fights, getting frustrated. Maybe not getting into fights because I'm a mature woman who doesn't get on fights on the internet, but getting angry and stomping around and being like, can you believe this idiot? Can you believe he said that? That's not true. That kind of thing. So that came up. I read a book called Deep Focus by Cal Newport. It was recommended in a class that I took, Write Better, Faster, which is about becoming better, faster, not being necessarily a faster writer. And they talked about that one of the big advantages that we have as humans that a computer will never take from us is our ability to deeply sink and focus on innovation and tasks like that. And so I highly recommend the book. It's very academic, but it has a lot of great ways to talk about the distraction that is checking email every 15 minutes, checking Facebook every 15 minutes, and some of the false myths about the idea that you're super effective. And so he talked about a lot of studies where they have teams at a company will have a full day off from email, and how they saw that they were able to be more productive faster. They talked about the idea that you have a limited, and the example of the book is about 4 hours a day that you have your best brain time. And if you're using that on Facebook, that is your most valuable resource being wasted in one of the least productive ways. And so that was something that made me realize I need to get a handle on my social media. And then when I tried to, I discovered that it was much more of a problem than I realized. I went to a women's retreat where we didn't have social media, and I noticed over the course of the weekend how my attention span and my ability to like read books changed from the first day where I was antsy and just kept reaching for my phone even though I couldn't check anything, to the last day when I was able to just easily sit and read a book and enjoy myself and have long sustained conversations and look around the world. And so that started getting me to realize that there was a real problem. I noticed that whenever I had an uncomfortable feeling, you know, we all have stuff we're dealing with, some baggage, and whenever that would come up, I'd be like, oh, I'll go to Facebook, or, you know, so I got tried to get off Facebook and I got more on Twitter. That became a real problem, so that I was addicted to two things. I also have a friend, the Write Better Faster class I took is taught by Becca Syme, and she has a book called Dear Writer, You Need to Quit. And it's a list of things that writers need to let go of, assumptions we have, and one of them is that social media is your friend. And then lastly, I read a book called The Power of Habit. I can't think of the author offhand, and he talks about these cycles that we get into. You have an uncomfortable feeling, you do a behavior, you get a reward. So for me, social media and scrolling had been this automatic process of, I feel uncomfortable or bored or whatever. I go on social media, I scroll a little bit, I get a little dopamine hit. Being funny is important to me, so I was cracking jokes and looking for that, oh, you're so funny kind of reply and stuff. And so I realized that if I could just take the time that I was investing there and invested in my books, I could make more money. So that is a big part of the why I tried to get off social media. The two biggest issues for me were Facebook and Twitter. And also what I was finding was that I was going on, I was getting this dopamine hit, but I wasn't necessarily stepping away and feeling better. I was oftentimes being frustrated with people. You know, people are rude. People are especially rude right now because they're all stressed out. But, you know, you would say something, and rather than being like, hey, thank you for spending 20 minutes to write up an answer, they'd be like, no, you're dumb, or what, you know, whatever. So a big part of this is the idea that I wanted to get a hold of my, I'll say, addiction. So what I did for me was I went in, I changed my password on both Twitter and Facebook. You can force log out every other computer. So it force logged out all of my devices. I deleted the app on my phone. I changed the password to just a bunch of random words and letters, and I wrote them down and I put them up there. But for me, most people you don't need to, but I decided to just post and just say, hey, I'm going to be offline for a couple weeks finishing up my book, which was true. And then it took several days. I would navigate to Facebook without even thinking, which is why I previously I had tried to just take it off my phone. Well, then I would log in through the web browser, or I would log in over here. And a lot of times when I just was like, oh, I'm going to get off Facebook, I would find myself opening up Facebook, and I would be looking at Facebook before I even realized what had happened. And of course, by the time I looked at Facebook, I saw all these notifications for things I needed to do. So I would do that real quick, and then the cycle would continue. So I had to really take a hard-handed approach. I was just in a place where I was ready to. So for me, I went cold turkey, and that was about several weeks. As Becca says in her book, people will let you know if something is really important. If there's something that, you know, I kept Messenger on my phone so people could message me because that wasn't a real problem. And I kept Instagram, so I could technically post to Facebook through Instagram. I didn't do that a lot, but I am doing that now. And then I started my YouTube channel. So I found other ways to interact with people. It just didn't have, what I discovered was it didn't have the same negative effect on me. After about a month, I did have someone message me and say, hey, we're doing an author event. We want to make sure that you're involved. And so I started getting back on, but I really limited it. I would only do it in the morning once and then I would log out. I would take every single time, I would take that random thing from up there, come over here, log it in. I wouldn't save the password. No, don't update my password. No, don't save me for another day. And I would log out at the end of it. And when I happened to memorize the password, I changed it again. I changed it to another random series of letters and numbers and did it again. And just today I discovered I memorized it and I went on twice. And so now I've got to go change it again, because the idea is just to make it such a hassle that I'm not wasting my time on it. And it has made a really big difference, you know, going from hours and hours a day down to almost nothing. And then I've been really carefully watching Instagram to make sure I don't repeat the habits. And I'm doing the same with YouTube, and I'm replacing it with other things. Okay, you're bored, you can go out for a walk, which is easy because it's summer. Or you're bored, I have a book ready that I can read, or a project to work on. I have a big list of projects. So for me, that's kind of how I've been dealing with my social media addiction. It's not perfect, it's not doing better, but it is getting there. I haven't listed on any opportunities, and I'm slowly in the stage of trying to add it back in a healthy manner, because I don't want to be completely off Facebook. So when I do go on, there's a couple of, I have moderated groups, so I check that group, I check my notifications. I do post to Facebook from my Instagram. So I checked, you know, I interact with everybody who comments, and I have started posting stuff on my author page. I've had to cut back on that a little bit, but it hasn't really affected my sales because I have a very robust newsletter that I do use consistently. So I hope that answers some questions that you might have, or thoughts you might have about it. I do recommend Deep Focus. There's a number, they present, especially toward the end of the book. It is a pretty academic book. I enjoyed it, but I had other people who told me that they thought it was very dry. I didn't feel that way, but it was an audio book. I did take 4 or 5 months to get through it. I would listen to like a half an hour a day, and then like think on it for a week, and then another half hour, and then think on it for a week. But at the end, they do offer a lot of scientific backed processes, like what I do now, where I only use it for a certain period of time. And it's actually been, I've been really kind of lucky, because the quarantine or internet's really bad, which means I can only really get on Facebook first thing in the morning. So it's kind of been reinforcing that, that habit. But I hope that that is useful to you. Thank you.